I wanted to talk about Marvel,
Yes.
the MCU in particular, and
Okay.
sort of the state that it's in. And probably, I mean, if this ever gets out to some of these people, this is probably going to get me in trouble with some of like the MCU fans, like the stans.
So let me ask you this. Let me ask you
Okay,
this.
go ahead.
What did you think of the trailer?
Um,
I don't mind
I
giving my thoughts first if you want me to, but I wanted to
no,
hear your
it's
thoughts
basically one
to see if
thing.
you agreed with me.
I went, oh, Alfred Molina, cool. As far as the trailers, like first impressions, I was like, oh yes. It was just like it was good to see him. I didn't care about anything else that was going on.
Right. It just seemed very cookie cutter, very plain. I am hopeful. Like I am. I do want to see it. I want to
Yeah,
see
I
it
want to.
more
Yeah,
than the Eternals and
it.
the. Oh man, what's that movie? Shang-Chi.
Shang-Chi, or
Shang-Chi.
if you're being proper according to someone came out and was like, it's actually Shang-Chi. I was like, oh brother. It's like you're not helping your case. No one wants to see this already. It's like
I know,
stop coming
right?
out and correcting people. Just go
So
with it.
Shang-Chi.
Just call it Shang-Chi. Don't buy into their garbage.
So Shang-Chi. Yeah, both of those I
Comes
don't
out
really care.
this week. It comes out on the 3rd, so I
Yeah,
believe
and
this
and
coming
here's the
Friday.
thing: people don't realize if that doesn't have a good opening, Eternals will get delayed, and then Spider-Man will get delayed.
Dude, Eternals is getting delayed.
It's
No
definitely
one
getting
wants.
delayed.
There's part of me that would argue that more people want to go see Shang-Chi than want to see the Eternals. No,
Yep.
and here's the thing: I've got friends that I've talked to who kind of disagree with me on just sort of like the state of Marvel and where it is right now. I haven't heard a single one of them go, I'm excited for Shang-Chi or I'm excited for the Eternals. They're probably excited for Spider-Man because, one, it's a known property, and no matter how you feel about the current Spider-Man, it's still Spider-Man. It's going to make money. It's just a popular property. It's like Batman. Spider-Man's essentially Batman for the MCU. Obviously, they're not exactly the same, but I mean, just in the popularity scale, they kind of go back and forth for the different companies. So, okay. Thoughts. This is a good place to start sort of like a conversation about the state of Marvel, because we got to talk about sort of the big picture for what's going on with Spider-Man. It's a little speculative as far as the movie's concerned, because obviously it's not coming out until maybe December, and then if it gets delayed, maybe next summer, because they're not going to put it out in January. They're not going to put it out in because it's all after December. It's all slow season until the summer. You pretty much, and I don't know. Let's see, March, April, May. Maybe May. If it gets delayed, I would, my guess would be May at the soonest. So here's the thing. From reports that have come out, Alfred Molina has said, who plays Doc Ock, for those of you that don't know, I've been saying his name. He plays Dr. Octopus in Spider-Man 2. Personally, I think Spider-Man 2 is the best Spider-Man movie that's been made. It's my opinion. I think it's far and away better than the rest of them. Allegedly, he gets sucked into MCU Spider-Man timeline after he's been defeated and like destroys the machine, and he's like essentially after he's gone through his like redemption arc. That's supposedly when he gets sucked up. Now, we don't know if that's the case. Maybe that's just what they're telling him. It's so the news is really weird, and Marvel is known for sort of like trying to put like the shade over people's eyes when it comes to the trailers and other things like that. So there's two things that are going on. One, and the better option in this is that Alfred Molina is actually going to be a good guy in the movie. So he's going to come back. The thing you saw with him where he's like, hello, Peter, is in the third act, which it kind of looks like maybe, somewhere after the first half of the movie, more than likely. And he'll be a good guy because he's had his redemption arc. So it would be, and this is what people are worried about, because it would be stupid for them to pull him from Spider-Man 2 after he's redeemed himself to make him a villain for this movie.
Right.
It makes no sense. Now, unless they try to pull some crap where it's like not the exact same Doc Ock from Spider-Man 2, there's all sorts of dumb stuff they can do. But that's kind of the worry, along with this just being a one-off thing, because this is supposed to be Tom Holland's last Spider-Man movie.
Oh, it is.
If he continues to play Spider-Man, the rights return to Sony after this movie. So it's weird, kind of messy, and everyone's slightly excited because of the nostalgia factor, as far as I can tell. But again, no one's really excited because it's Tom Holland in a Spider-Man movie. I mean, there's probably a small portion of the population. You probably have a lot of the women who are fans specifically of Tom Holland that are excited to see this movie, not because of any other reason except Tom Holland is in this movie. So that's kind of what's going on surrounding this. Do you have thoughts before I keep going?
Yeah, so do you think that Tobey Maguire and then Andrew Garfield will be in this?
Yes. I think there have been reports, but again, that goes back to some of the weirdness of this movie, because there's rumors that like Tobey Maguire is going to sacrifice himself at some point in the movie. It's just like, what are y'all doing?
Let's see how it plays out.
Yeah,
Let's see what it plays out.
We'll see. So this kind of leads to my current major gripe with the state of the MCU.
Okay.
And it's that I think the multiverse is the dumbest garbage ever, to be honest. It's such a cop-out for writing. Now, if they had given it... Now, listen, maybe they will come up with rules for the multiverse, and I will be proven wrong, but I don't think I'm going to. And here's why. I finished Loki. I suffered. Well, okay. It's not as bad as Captain the Winter Soldier. Falcon and the Winter Soldier, excuse me. Not Captain America.
Captain America, the Winter Soldier was
great movie. Good. Very, very good movie.
Yeah.
Top tier Marvel.
Yes.
Falcon Winter Soldier, one of the worst things. Personally, I think it's the worst thing they've ever done. Loki, not as bad. The 5th episode saves it a little, but it's still really boring. There's way too much talking, and it's just like it just doesn't go anywhere forever. And then you get to like the 5th episode, and it finally kind of starts picking up, and then sort of just fizzles in the 6th episode. So it was like, and I know people disagree with me because they're like, oh, I like Marvel. I don't care.
Gobble.
Yeah, I don't care.
Exactly. Don't think. Just eat product.
Yeah. So here's the thing. The multiverse is essentially not created, but set in motion after the events of Loki, which I won't spoil just in case someone wants to actually watch it, if they haven't already. It's set in motion, and it essentially opens the realm to an infinite number of characters coming into the Marvel Cinematic Universe that are just slightly different versions of characters we've already seen, or new characters, right? So the theory is that this is how the X-Men are going to get involved, since Marvel now owns those properties. But there's weird stuff that's going to happen too, and one of the biggest problems I have as far as the writing is concerned is that death doesn't matter anymore. It didn't really matter before, because all they were doing was killing off villains that were just kind of throwaway anyway. Like, nobody really liked any of the villains until people liked Mads Mikkelsen in Doctor Strange, but Thanos is essentially the only one anyone's liked. And they kind of already did the thing where they're like, well, we killed him, and then because of the multiverse, because we traveled through time or whatever, and they kind of messed with the flow of time. They kind of already showed like, oh, he died, but then he came back just so we could have this big fight at the end of the movie. I have a lot of issues with what's the last one? Not Infinity War, but Endgame.
Endgame.
There's some major just headache problems that I've got with that movie. But all that being said, it's not to the level of where it is now, where they're doing something called What If currently. It's based off a series of comics that were essentially what ifs. Like, what if Peggy Carter became Captain America instead of Steve Rogers, right?
Right.
And that's like I think the first episode of this actual series. And again, it's starting to really, that's an area that you're seeing Marvel get hyper political with super things, or kind of throw their preachy subject matter in there, where like Peggy Carter as Captain America, or as Captain Carter, I think is what they call her, is just like way better than Steve Rogers ever was as Captain America.
Oh yeah.
And you're like, come on. And it's terrible.
It's because of the agenda.
Yeah, it's agenda driven rather than being about the story, which is the case for the first 2 episodes of What If, and then the third one is pretty much void of that, and it's kind of an interesting thing. And they also, President Loki is in that third episode, and he's in the Loki series, so it's like a variant of Loki, and so they're already showing you where those things are interconnecting.
Right. Exactly.
So
And go ahead.
So go ahead, and then I'll tell you some other stuff that seems like it's probably coming.
Okay, so I'll let you continue on that train of thoughts,
Go ahead.
and then because mine's going to diverge from that.
Okay, so the thing that's going to happen at some point, it's almost guaranteed unless Marvel starts falling apart and they really have to start just bringing in popular characters and all the stuff, though this kind of leans into it as well. Thanos is probably coming back.
Oh, I was just about to say it. Thanos is going to come back, isn't he?
He's going to come back, and he's going to be a good guy. Because in the second episode of What If, a version of Thanos was taught how to be upright and moral by T'Challa, who is Star-Lord now, who is Black Panther, right? And this is the problem, is that they do the same thing that they did with Peggy Carter, where T'Challa essentially becomes Star-Lord, which still doesn't make sense because Star-Lord was a pet name given to Peter Quill by his mother, not a name that is just associated with the person in that role. It doesn't make sense. And they make him like this perfect Mary Sue character in that. And it's really gross. And, you know, Thanos doesn't have to be beaten, because just through the power of talking, T'Challa was able to make him a good guy. So that version of Thanos is going to show up at some point. Whether no matter what happens on the money end for Marvel, if they start panicking because Shang-Chi doesn't do well, because Eternals doesn't do well, and maybe Spider-Man even slightly underperforms, they're going to be trying to throw everything they have, which means X-Men will probably come in. They'll probably try to get a version of Captain America, Thor. Well, Thor's still around technically. They're gonna have a lot of massive screw ups, I think, over the next couple of years, where people are just like, I don't want to see Natalie Portman as Thor.
Yeah,
she's like 5'2" and weighs like 100 pounds.
And because it's going to be it again. It's
gonna be hyper.
It's gonna be a Mary Sue. It's gonna be hyper politicized. Yeah. It's gonna fit the agenda.
So, and the only thing I'll admit that one of the aspects of, like, I guess like female Thor or whatever that I did like is that she has cancer, and so she's battling with cancer while dealing with trying to be Thor. And every time she transforms into Thor, the chemo that she's going through gets wiped out of her body, because it's like a purification thing. Like, there can't be any impurities in her or whatever, because you have to be like something about Mjolnir, and you have to be like worthy. And so I don't know. It's not great, but it was kind of a cool angle on like giving a character a struggle. I don't think they're probably going to... I almost guarantee you they're not going to do that, or it's going to get underplayed completely. But yeah, I think Love and Thunder is not going to do very well, especially if it's not like centered around Chris Hemsworth, right?
Right.
Or they're going to rework it to put him in the movie more than they were planning to. Guardians will probably do fine, because people love James Gunn and they love Guardians. It's, a staple. I think I am looking forward to the next Doctor Strange, because Sam Raimi is directing it, and it's supposed to be more horror-esque than previous movies. So we'll see. I'm skeptical of everything at this point. But needless to say, the biggest problem that I have right now is that death doesn't matter. So characters coming and going doesn't matter. They essentially, what they did with everything that came from the past 10 years with Loki and kind of opening up the multiverse, is being like, none of it mattered.
Yeah.
There was,
which
yeah,
there's makes no emotional connection, involvement. You wipe everything out, and you can't take
it's
the content serious because it's like, why does it matter?
yeah, it's kind of a big middle finger to people who are paying attention, and then everyone else is just kind of absorbing this stuff and being like, oh, next property, like you were saying, it's like, oh, just consume the product and wait for more
Yeah.
product to show up.
Me no think. Me just eat product.
Yeah. And so we're kind of in this weird stage of that. And, there's supposed to be a Captain America movie, which, again, after Falcon and the Winter Soldier, I have absolutely no interest in seeing, especially if it's
Come
just going
on,
to be
David.
like, you
Only
need to do
you can defeat racism.
Joseph,
You
need to do
live up
better.
to.
You need to do better, Senator. Like, it's like, oh my
That's
Lord.
what I was doing.
Like, if he's just gonna fly around preaching at politicians, I don't know, and I don't know what they're like, what they're setting up for some of the other stuff, and I can hardly care. It's like kind of interested in Spider-Man, definitely interested in Doctor Strange, and everything else. It's like, I don't know. Like, we'll see. Like, maybe I'll wait for a couple weeks and see what people are saying. Yeah, I don't like this road they're going down. I don't think that they handled it right. I think, and obviously hindsight is 2020, but I think what they should have done. And then if you have anything else, this is my last point, and I'm done talking about this. What they should have done, in my opinion, is after Infinity War, they should have started the next phase. So not in Infinity War into Endgame. From solely a storytelling perspective, they should have done Infinity War, the snap happens, and then Phase 4 immediately starts. So not this big jump in time, none of this like weird garbage that they were doing. It just continues. And either, if they had the guts, which obviously they didn't, they would have just left those people gone. Like, they would have been a little more particular about who got snapped away, and that would have just been it. And it's like, those characters are gone, right? Then, maybe, slowly, start doing some things with a little bit of the multiverse. One of the characters figures out how to, even if it's Loki, right? You go down that Loki path of, I guess he wouldn't have been in it because of the time travel thing. So one of the characters figures out that the multiverse exists, right? Kind of has similar tones to the way that Loki's TV series went. And that's Phase 4. And it's kind of this like, oh, the multiverse is a real thing. Oh, we can now introduce a character that maybe was previously gone. So the death of those characters still has a little bit of meaning. But maybe you bring back an alternate version of them that maybe isn't exactly the same and maybe even isn't played by the same actor if contracts are up and you're trying to move into something different, right? So either that, or they should have just ended it after Endgame and reset everything.
Oh, yeah.
And just start it over. Do something different. Tell different stories. You've got the X-Men now. Start with the X-Men and build your universe off of the X-Men. There's just a million things that they could have done, and instead they're just like, we're going to preach at you and put all these activists in writing positions.
Yep.
And this is what we're doing now, and you're going to like it. Or and then they'll complain when the movie doesn't make money, and they'll be like, those misogynists. These are the same people that didn't like Captain Marvel.
So
that'd be great. Go ahead.
Yeah, right. So my complaint with Marvel and with most of Hollywood's writing of male and female characters, and specifically we're talking about male characters right here, is that Peter is very much a beta male.
The new one, Tom Holland's version.
Yeah, Tom Holland. Yeah, Tom Holland's version. And again, I understand he's a kid and he's a teenager and stuff like that, but there's very little about him that's true and genuine masculinity. And again, I'm not talking about someone being an alpha male, because Hollywood also mischaracterizes men and overplays that part as well. I really like the epitome to me, like the peak, the apex of the best description of a man in a Hollywood movie would be, for me, Aragorn. He's a warrior when he needs to be, right? But he's also gentle with when the context or the person relies on it. You know what I mean?
I agree.
There's a part where he stands up to Legolas in the Battle of Helm's Gate when Legolas is despairs and says we're all going to die, and he says they're all going to die, and he said I shall die as one of them. And then later on, when Legolas apologizes to him, when he says "forgive me," he says, "There's nothing to forgive, brother." So you see this a great depiction of manhood.
Yeah.
And again, you're not going to expect a teenager to have all of that, right?
Right.
Especially this version of Spider-Man that Tom Holland is portraying. However, he hardly has any of that. You know what I'm saying?
Well, I don't know how much growth he's really had. Like, this is a kid who, and this is why No Way Home is a little odd. It's odd for both Spider-Man and Doctor Strange. One, because you think at this point Spider-Man would understand the role that he needs to play, and he wouldn't be this selfish kid, right? Like,
exactly.
He had to kind of grow up fast. He literally died and came back to life, and then he lost his mentor. So you'd think that the next logical step in a character arc would be now he's learning how to be
a leader,
how to be responsible, right? Now, and obviously, I'm coming at this from a perspective of MCU doesn't care about the MCU doesn't care about the comic books for the most part, except plucking what they want to out of it. And so I'm not really worried about that. What I am talking about is these people don't know how to write stories, and they don't know how to set up character arcs at all, because characters just kind of forget who they are from one movie to the next a lot of the time. And so, yeah, you would think that, except he just does this selfish thing and it causes massive problems in the universe, right? So he goes from essentially being someone who helped save the universe to maybe being the reason, him and Strange, unless Strange isn't who he is and he's actually Mephisto, because everybody thinks that Mephisto's going to keep showing up. And maybe he will, maybe he won't. I honestly don't care. Oh, that was the other thing that has been bugging me, is that it seems like people care more about they care more about their theories about what's going to happen than actually going to see these movies.
Yeah.
They're just like, oh, I have this great theory. I think this is what's going to happen. Or I think this character's going to show up, blah, blah, blah. But no one's going, man, I'm really excited to see this because I really like Tom Holland and I can't wait to see how he and so-and-so interact and how this thing becomes this. You're not hearing any of that. It's all just, well, I think based on something that I know because I read a Wikipedia page that this is the thing that's going to happen. And you're like,
oh, yeah.
And I know there are actual like comic book fans out there that are doing the same thing, but a lot of the time, it's like, especially when it comes to maybe like Shang-Chi and the Eternals, a lot of that is people going on Wikipedia and looking that stuff up because nobody knew who they were.
Oh, no one knew who they were.
They had less of a presence than Guardians did before Guardians came out. And the only reason I knew about the Guardians early on is because I was playing Marvel vs. Capcom, and Rocket Raccoon is in Marvel vs. Capcom, and I went, wait, there's a raccoon in Marvel that has machine guns and rockets? And then that's when I went to go look it up because I was like, that's the coolest thing ever. That's how I got introduced to Guardians of the Galaxy. The Eternals weren't there. Shang-Chi for sure wasn't there. It's like, come on now, guys. Like, I'm not a huge comic book person, but come on now. But you're right.
Yeah, it definitely comes across as pandering.
Aragorn is a great example of that. And, he actually has an arc. He's not perfect. And though he's written a little differently in the books to be a bit more of an assertive character, my English lit teacher in high school would disagree with me on this, but I like the fact that they give him a bit of a stumbling block in being unsure about his place as king.
Yeah, I do like that. I really like that in the movie, and instead of like, you don't really see that in the book as much.
He's much more assertive in the books. Like he's very in the books it's very much a I know who I am. It's just not the right time, right?
Right.
In the movies, it's I know who I am, and I don't know if I have what it takes to take up that position. And through his journey, he learns essentially how to become that person by Return of the King, which I like. I think it's a good character arc. It gives him a little bit more depth as far as like, and I'd probably argue that with my English teacher now if I was in high school, but you know.
So that's pretty much just it for me. I mean, I wouldn't mind spending money to see it in the movie theater. It's Spider-Man. His last two movies were good. In my opinion, so I don't mind seeing it again. It's just, again, I'm kind of not expecting a huge character arc. I think some things are strange with it, but
who knows, man? It's not, and that's the thing is, it's not
as long
going
as
to
it
matter.
doesn't preach at me, I'm good.
Yeah, it's
really,
not going to matter.
It's such a low
by
bar
the
to
end.
say.
because if Spider-Man's going back to Sony, if the property's going back to Sony and Tom Holland's done, the movie hardly matters. It's just going to kind of be like an end cap for all of that, and then they're going to move on to whatever they've got coming with, the new MCU.
Maybe we'll do Miles Morales as the next Spider-Man.
Maybe.
We'll see.